Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulation.
Hello once again, welcome to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 83rd iteration of these Simulationist podcasts that we're doing, and we're recording it on the 6th of April, 2014. My name is Josh Trelevin, and with me, hosting as always on the other side of the table,
Ryan Kirkby.
Okay.
Once and forever.
Yeah. So how are things, Ryan?
Well, I'm doing pretty darn good this week. I managed to get a nice chance to watch the last of the Universal Horror Frankenstein movies that I had yet to see. It's not the last chronologically, it's the second chronologically. It's The Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, so it's the last for you, but not the last series.
If I'd been able to watch them all in sequence, it would have been the second one.
Okay, so
But,
Bride of Frankenstein. So
I loved it. It was, when I was toggling through and it shows the review of what's going on, they gave it 4 stars. Heartily recommend at least 4 stars. More if they had it, but I think their star scale thing only goes from 2 to 4. Because actually they do have a couple with 1. But yeah, it's 1 to 4 and there's no halves or anything.
Oh,
so
okay. So this is on what, Netflix or?
No, it's on Shaw Cable and Memorable Entertainment Television. So yeah, if you have a basic cable package, you should probably get it if you're anywhere within North America. Mine is the one coming out of technically Seattle, and they also work with Victoria and Vancouver decently, so that's nice. But yeah, if you're anywhere within America, you should probably be able to find it. And there's a man named Sven Gulli does it late at night on Saturday nights.
Wait, is that his real name?
No, but that's his stage name. He's Sven Gulli, and that's the Sven Gulli Presents sort of thing. And he has a nice deal with the Universal group, and any of their old horror stuff he's allowed to pick and choose pretty much and put them on.
Oh, that's cool. And now, does he comment throughout, like at the commercial breaks? Does he?
Yes. He'll do a fun thing where he'll be able to put himself into a still of the scene. Like he'll put his face in where it's supposed to be a skull, or switch out someone else's face, and he'll make a nice quip, and then it'll say again, and he'll like start up a joke, and then the next thing the person says will wind up being the punchline to it. I gotta warn you, the jokes are pretty cheesy, but that's his thing. And I can dig a good cheesy joke at least as well as the next guy, So yeah, I like it. I like his stuff, and I gotta say, The Bride of Frankenstein was amazing. The artwork, the style, the architecture they used in there was just huge and wonderful, and they very much paid attention to it. It wasn't just like, it was like, okay, we need a scene, so you guys who build the scenery in the background, make something for it. No, they definitely, you could get the impression that they sat down and said, this is going to be a laboratory where, the evil Dr. Pretorius works. Make it look small and cramped because he's not doing too well, but also the house of what somebody who's mildly insane might have. And so, they'd have all the little weird stuff here and there, and it'd be awkward and weird. And when they take the Frankenstein monster, they capture him and they bring him down to, the whole area where, the old dungeon, as they called it.
Yeah.
They made sure the brick walls, not only did they look like they were wet from condensation and, and age, but everything was slightly crooked to indicate, like the horrible and unnatural nature of everything, including its inhabitant currently.
I wonder if that's easier or harder for a crew to, people who make sets. I wonder if it's easier or harder to make something that looks sort of broken or run down.
I think it would be harder because they have to start fresh, and then they have to make something new look old.
Yeah, because the easy thing would be just to make a flat, straight wall or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and then just put up a bunch of quick bricks sort of thing going on here. But they actually made sure to make it look old, And how do you make it look old? Like the old-fashioned styles, make it look crooked and all that, like it's being put together here and there in bits and pieces. And so the whole thing does have a much more older style to it. So I like that. Okay, question for you: what is scarier than Frankenstein's monster?
Oh, is this a joke? Frankenstein's mother.
No. It's actually a thing. Frankenstein's monster was scarier this time round because he moved with purpose, individual purpose, and he spoke.
Frankenstein's monster who wants something.
Yes, Frankenstein's monster when he has a desire to do something. So when he speaks, because this is the one where he learned, like fire, bad. He learns it from a blind man who doesn't care that the guy's hideous and ugly.
He teaches him how to talk?
Yes, they spend some time together in the... the blind man for some reason has his own house in the middle of the woods and he gets along just fine. I don't know where he's getting his cigars from. I don't know where he's getting all this and that from.
Is that supposed to be symbolic, do you think? Like the symbol... Is there supposed to be symbolism with a blind man teaching the monster how to talk or something?
I did get the sense that there was a decent amount of subtext, like only the truly innocent... Well, here's the thing, is he invites Frankenstein's monster in because the Frankenstein monster hears him playing the violin, and the music soothes the savage beast sort of thing, and because you've been hurt, because he feels the hand that had recently he tried to rob a gypsy family of their cooking I think it was chicken, and he tries reaching right in where the fire is because he knocks the thing over, and so the food is in the fire, and he goes to reach it and he burns his hand because fire burns, right?
Yeah.
And so, the blind man realizes that he's hurt himself, and then he gives a nice little thing as Frankenstein's monster is just laying down on the bed about how he'd prayed to God for someone for him to send someone so that he wouldn't be so alone. So the Frankenstein's monster gives him more sense of completeness. He's not all alone in his blind world. And in return, Frankenstein's monster gets food and like someone to help him heal because it's a burnt hand.
Yeah. And
so he winds up doing a nice little prayer for him as he's holding Frankenstein monster's hand and just openly weeping. And it's a really memorable scene because this character is like not just and then Frankenstein's monster's not doing too good. So we got to put him somewhere where he can get something to eat and heal up and relax, and we got to get someone to teach him. He's not. It doesn't seem to be there just for that purpose, even though ostensibly that's all the blind man is there for. He really feels like Frankenstein's monster comes across the house. This is the inhabitant of the house, and it's almost as though he pre-existed. He was a true person.
Okay, so it's like your random encounters, sort of. It doesn't necessarily tie into the plot, but it
actually does help out advance the character of Frankenstein's monster. Without this scene, he would not be able to speak. He'd still be doing his grunts and sort of thing. So it advances the plot. But the blind man plays more than just the blind man who teaches Frankenstein's monster to speak.
Okay.
He plays a character. And I saw it all through. Every character was a character. They weren't just a little bit to help fuel you on towards this end scene or this cool thing going on.
That's interesting. And you've watched all the other shows in the series.
I've seen many shows, and this one is definitely more. It would be like if you were to watch a standard horror movie now, and the bunch of teens goes on the haunted roller coaster ride, and it's like, the ticket vendor who's taking their tickets, it seems like a really involved person. Like he's not just there to take tickets, and say, oh no, something's gone wrong. Mm-hmm. He feels like a real character, a real person. And that seems kind of weird, right? Like, this second, like the kind of person, he's only there for the one real scene.
Yeah.
Why has he got so much character and personality? I don't know, but that's what every character was like in here.
That's interesting, because I suppose you can take that and apply it to your D&D game.
Oh, definitely. Make sure every character is a character,
all
not
of your
just
NPCs.
Not just and then this guy buys all your gear and sells you new stuff. No, I remember you have done stuff like that before.
Maybe with one or two characters. Sure.
I recall an instance where we had to sell some gems in a campaign, and you had a few options for us. One of which was a dwarf that didn't speak common, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't apparently a very good jeweler, because in a metagame context, intelligence is the default stat for things like, craft checks. So, he couldn't really craft the gem up very well. So, that was kind of a clue. He wasn't good, but he was definitely a character. Like, why can't this dwarf speak common? Everyone speaks common, except the monsters. That's why we know who to kill, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's what it was like. Every character was a full character. No one felt like just a little bit part.
Yeah. Well, now, they don't... I mean, it doesn't take a lot. That's the other thing. It doesn't take too many details. I mean, you need a few details, but it doesn't take too many to make the audience believe that somebody that they run into is actually a character. Like,
and there's somebody you remember later on.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Dr. and Mrs. Frankenstein, because they get married, so I guess that's the proper way to address them. So yeah, Dr.
Oh, I suppose Bride of Frankenstein, is that what it's called?
It's the Bride of Frankenstein, but that's actually an interesting double play on words, because Elizabeth, his bride-to-be, they actually marry. She's the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But the evil Dr. Pretorius, manages to blackmail, I think was it Henry Frankenstein? It's not Victor von Frankenstein.
Okay.
Into resuming, his creating, monsters work. He doesn't want to. He just wants to go straight and legit. He wants to have a normal life with his wonderful new wife. But they create a female to help, complete Frankenstein as more than just a single person, as like part of like a, I don't know, some sort of Steiny race or something.
It's like which of the Shrek series was it when they both got girlfriends and got married? Well, I guess he got a girlfriend in the first one.
But yeah, the whole extra marriage thing with Donkey and Dragon.
And then Donkey and the Dragon got married, so they have the girls come along for the sequel.
Oh, of course, you couldn't have the sequel with Fiona. I mean, she was integral just as much as anyone.
That's true.
So
yeah.
The Dragon, on the other hand, probably could have been dropped, and nobody really would have seen.
Oh, poor Dragon.
Well, here's the sad thing. She really didn't speak. So she wasn't as much a character. And that's why I like the Frankenstein more in this one. He spoke. When he tells, Dr. Frankenstein to build a wife for him, build a companion, that sounds scary. Because it's like, whoa. He's not just a force of nature like in the first one. Snap a few necks? Sure. He got prodded into it because they were attacking him. They felt threatened. And so, he cracks a few spines, sort of thing. Or he accidentally drowns a girl because, she's showing him how to throw things into the lake. Turns out she can't swim, so she drowns. It's a scene from the first one. It's fairly memorable, and you probably see it parodied a couple times in Frankenstein-like parodies.
Right.
After they run out of flowers to throw in there, he throws her in.
Oh, you talked about that one in the
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So when he does that stuff in the first one, it's like, oh, well, he's a simple thing. He doesn't know any better. He's being tortured by, Igor and all that. Or, well, technically Ivan in the first one, but, he's the Igor is the role, the hunchbacked henchman. And so, he's being tortured by, oh, I scare you with fire, I scare you with this stuff. And so he's a very traumatic character. But when he speaks and he has, his own, motive, he gets a lot scarier. So it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He became more of a character than ever because he could speak.
Yeah, it's like the whole Turing test thing, or the computer. When it talks, people sort of are fooled into thinking that there's a person behind it.
Or I suppose if you want, you could see it as any one of those automated chat programs like Cleverbot. Yeah, it seems more because it can express something that at least you can, assume to have, be met. Oh, Cleverbot says it wants this. It's just, kind of parroting back things. But I can briefly, for a time, imagine it actually does want. This is a Cleverbot on the other side that's asking for this stuff. Instead of just, putting a line back that it's being told fits in with this part of the conversation.
And do you remember the computer that played Jeopardy, Watson?
I believe so, yeah.
Watching that I watched it on YouTube, not real TV, but...
That's okay, we can forgive you.
It would be quite a different thing if it just came up with a text answer, on a screen.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of but they gave it a synthetic voice, which I think really makes it feel more... I mean, it's a computer.
It personifies it so much better. Which is something I've always found interesting because I've had a habit in campaigns of having mute characters be a thing. And so that way, it kind of forces the characters to interact more instead of just saying, okay, this character tells us what, and it's like, well, hand gestures. So you either make an intelligence check or try and understand what I'm trying to mimic to you now.
Yeah.
Very few people just take the intelligence roll, which is interesting, I've noticed. That's all they have to do is make the roll, but it's like, okay. What, you're mimicking what now? It's, okay, I think I get this. Timmy fell down the well. Close enough. On with the adventure. Go find a well. I'll create up something around it, and I'll put a monster in there or something. Timmy is the name of a horrible beast at the bottom of the well. Whatever.
Alright.
But yeah, is Bride of Frankenstein. It was very good, very well done, wonderfully done. The bit that got me, I think, most is that in a big group scene, when you see, people dressed up as various monsters, the Bride of Frankenstein is almost, like a given to be found in the background. She's got the long, hair that goes up back with the nice white streak going through there.
Oh,
Marge Simpson always has the thing going on for her style.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. So I kind of expected that she'd have some sort of a prominent role. But she has 3 lines and only appears within the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Okay, yeah, that happens sometimes with monster movies.
Especially the older ones. I mean, that is a thing that winds up happening. Her 3 lines are scream, and then a hiss.
Oh, well, those aren't really lines, I don't know.
Well, that's all she has. And I mean, if I say, she didn't actually speak, well, technically, she had no lines, the same as the original Frankenstein movie with Frankenstein's monster.
Okay, well, I mean, that makes sense if it's sort of a sequel to Frankenstein and Frankenstein didn't talk, but the non-appearance thing sort of doesn't. Yeah, it's not. I mean,
she is the very titular Bride of Frankenstein that everyone was paying to see. Her face is on the background of the big posters, but she only appears in the last 15 minutes. And even then, she really isn't unwrapped, from the whole revivification process until the final 10 minutes. And so that was very interesting, I found. I kind of hoped there'd be more to her, or at least, by the end of it, I was like, oh, well, that's kind of a nice ending. I kind of like who died, who didn't die. Okay. Of course, Frankenstein doesn't truly die. He comes back in the next dang movie. And
spoilers, but...
well, dude, there was like 3 or 4 other movies after that with him. He always comes back.
Okay.
They all always come back. I mean, this is kind of a thing. Larry Talbot dies at the end of the original Wolfman movie, and yet he comes back. Yeah. He actually dies and stays dead for several years before coming back. He comes out of the tomb. Grave robbers to get the wolfsbane out of there. Full moon hits him. Apparently, psychology works even after you've been dead for 5 years. He comes right back up. Harsh. I had no idea the power of the mind was so big back in the 30s.
Yeah, well, we talked about that in another episode, which people can go back and look at. I think it's called The Wolfman or something.
No, the thing that gets me is that I'm afraid a lot of people who might watch it now for The Bride of Frankenstein might see her appearance in the last 10 minutes or so as being like, they never really gave women any decent roles then, so even if she's the name of the movie, she's really not going to be featured because it's all going to be about a bunch of guys, right?
Okay.
But honestly, a lot of the monsters didn't show up until in the last 15 minutes, of the movie, and the big action never really happened till then. So, if you're going to watch that, and it may seem that way to you, just take it with a grain of salt and compare it to the other movies of the time. They weren't writing bad parts for women then. It's just how they structured a monster movie then, for some reason.
Yeah. Well,
I'm certain why, but...
yeah, I mean, it's about the story, right? And it's about the drama and the acting, so
what happens with the various people and the personality conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a zombie movie. Zombies obviously come on screen right away in a zombie movie, or very early. But
that's what gets zombie movies a lot nowadays, is the person's just walking through in the first 5 minutes, zombie out of nowhere, and then you kind of cut to, okay, and then all of a sudden zombies everywhere because society collapsed and not everyone can outrun a shambling man.
Yeah, that's true. But then, I think the idea is that most of the sort of the dialogue and stuff is between the surviving humans.
And that's always what it was supposed to be about. I mean, just look at the original Night of the Living Dead, and you can look at the Night of the Living Dead, the original one. That is open source. That is public domain right now. There is no excuse for you to not find a copy of it. I think the colored ones are technically owned, though, so find the black and white one. Ted Turner owns the colorized version because he put enough effort to say, this is my version of it, and he's kept the rights to it.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's Ted Turner. I'll say it is. He likes to colorize all
Sure, why not?
things.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy when it comes to putting things into color. Even if it's a little off. Whatever, I don't care. But yeah, find the black and white one. It is public source. You can download that off of any of the peer-to-peer stuff, and that's not illegal. That's the proper file sharing they keep saying that everyone should be using all the darn time. So, nothing wrong with that. Watch it. it's not actually about the zombies. It's about a bunch of people in a high-stress situation, very confined, with weapons.
Oh, there you go, another recommendation.
Honestly, if the people who are big on reality TV were to see and realize this, I would love to see that played out as a concept. Call it Zombie House. You're trapped in an ever-confining, diminishing sized room with a lot of, people with conflicting personalities, and maybe you put in, paintball weapons. And just see what happens. That's reality TV I would actually watch.
That sounds like fun.
This week, you guys lose the proper use of the kitchen. If you want to eat anything, it's going to have to come out of these cans from the basement. There you go.
Yeah. Well.
Just a little thing to add a little bit more stress. And it doesn't have to be any sort of stupid challenge about who can do this faster, who can collect more of these icons or tokens. No. Somebody gets voted off once a week because they got eaten by the zombies.
That sounds, yeah.
It's a theme, and it worked in black and white. It'll work in color on TV now, and it'll get people like me to actually watch some reality TV. So, putting that out there, if you have some sort of say in the reality TV industry, think about it. Pitch the idea. Have some fun.
No, that's good. So how many dwarves out of 13 do you give the Bride of Frankenstein?
I give it all 13 dwarves. I'll add the Hobbit and the Wizard, and secret bonus, adding the dragon in for my rating, because they managed to sneak in a homosexual person into a 1930s movie when you could not do that. They had industry groupings that would just watch the movies and say, this person looks like they might be gay. Get rid of them. So and then people would have to do that. They managed to slip one guy in, the evil Dr. Pretorius. There's some very good symbology in there, too, about that. On the doctor's wedding night, Dr. Frankenstein, the Pretorius manages to blackmail him and sneak him away from his bride to take him back to the lab, where he tries to convince them to do unnatural, procreative activities. Which takes a weird little spin on creating a Frankenstein, which is another movie idea, I think, if you want to use that as a nice way of doing an analogy for, the homosexual relationship, as, creating a monster and, working out, is it really that bad sort of thing. You could have a very nice new dynamic on, either, the homosexual relationship or on creating a monster movie. So...
Well, it's people make their living in academia on queer readings of the monster movies. So I think almost every monster movie can be read as sort of an allegory for, for alternative,
Well, here's the thing.
LGBT.
You Google up Dr. Septimus Pretorius. Yes, I think that was his first name, Septimus. Because, if you're going to have a weird name like Pretorius, you got to name your kid Septimus, right? Why not? But yeah, even on the Wikipedia article, there's a whole section about him actually being homosexual, and the fact that they managed to slip it past the censors. So the fact that they managed to slip it past the very uptight censors of the day, that gets a secret bonus dragon for tomfoolery.
Okay, bonus dragon.
But yeah, extra, the bonus content for slipping past the censors.
And you're not taking away any points for the monster, the bride monster, not appearing on screen.
Well, that's the thing is I would have felt a little sad for the actress who played her. I mean, the thing, her hair was not natural. Apparently, that was it was something that the wire mesh that they had to wind up putting on her head.
Maybe it's preferable that she didn't have to go through that as much.
Yeah, and for not for 2 hours of filming time. But she was also, at the very beginning of the movie, she played the Mary Shelley character. The movie starts off with Mary, her husband Percy Shelley, the poet, and I think, was it Lord Byron? One of their friends, they're wonderful, amazing, palatial...
The romantics.
Yeah. During a stormy night, and they're talking about, this and that, and it goes on to, oh, yes, your book, will it get published one day, Mary? And she says, I think it will be. Oh, that's very good. I hope the best for you. But why did you end it at the scene with the whole fire? With the windmill. And she's like, that's not where I ended. That's just where I stopped writing. And they're like, oh, please tell us the rest of the story, Mary. And then she proceeds to do so, and that's The Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay.
So it's a very nice opening. I really dug it. It was very nicely done. Although, as my wife remarked, is they were all just sitting around, just all casual at home sort of thing, and they're all wearing the Victorian garb. And, it's like, oh my goodness, she's so dressed up to the nines. Or things. It's like, is this a party? And I'm like, no, they're just sitting around at home. It's the Victorian era. That's kind of how people dress all the time. And meanwhile, we're in pajamas, and just, basic shirts sort of thing. And we're like, I am so glad we don't have to dress up like that and be expected to do so this day and age, because I would not want to sit and watch the movie at 11 at night in a full tuxedo. It was a good movie, but it wasn't that good. So yeah, the lady who played the Bride of Frankenstein, who has no other name, wound up getting at least billing as Mary Shelley, so not that bad. She got 2 roles, which is more than a lot of people are able to get in any Hollywood production thing. So bonus points for her. Yes, I thoroughly recommend it. If you ever get the chance to watch it, take the time out. I put that on my list of good old films. I put that slightly under Arsenic and Old Lace.
Cool.
Only because Arsenic and Old Lace has a really nice, tight fit and speed to it. If you don't have a good, I don't want to watch a 2-hour movie. I want something for 5-10 minutes. This thing will keep you enthralled the entire time through. Don't worry. And everyone has a personality in this movie. And it works so well, and you can tell that the producer really cared for this movie. He wanted to produce something that would be recognized throughout the ages, and it really showed. He wasn't filming it. He wasn't just phoning in the film. No one was phoning in this film. Everyone was showing up, and everyone seemed to believe in it.
Yeah, they worked on it. That's really cool. Yeah.
So that was my big thing this week.
It's your big thing.
And a big thing it was, because I was very happy with that. So, but yes, what about you?
My weekend simulations, lots of things. I watched a baseball game on last.
A real baseball game or fictional baseball?
Friday. A real baseball game between the Blue Jays and the Yankees, and this, I'm not usually a sports guy, and this was I think it's season opener at Toronto, where their field there. And I watched it, and I haven't followed sports in many years, but when I was a kid, I did follow baseball a little bit. I played Little League, and I read a book about all the rules. So,
well, you're one step ahead of me then.
So I know most of the rules of baseball. There are a few things that I don't.
The weird, obscure things and the plays that people wind up doing for this and that reason.
And I couldn't remember if you're allowed to steal first base if the third strike is. If the catcher doesn't catch the third strike, but I don't think that's actually a rule. So
I think you should be allowed to at least make the attempt. I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Go for it, dude.
Yeah, I suppose. And the thought I had, I enjoyed the game. Like, I don't usually watch sports, so it was like, okay, here's something I'll sit down and watch, it was fun. And then I was thinking to myself, well, I like to see sports as sort of simulations because I like. Soccer as the sort of the battlefield, and football too, like sort of the battlefield where the troops are lined up against each other and they're trying to accomplish something. So I was thinking to myself, like what is being simulated with baseball, because it's a lot more intricate, and there's a lot. It feels to me like there's a lot more moving pieces, sort of.
Yeah, football. It's like 2 teams are collapsing back and forth against each other.
Well, there's only one ball of baseball, but.
But, in this case, it's like they take turns, so it is very much more abstract than, the ritualized combat some people call all sports. It's all just ritualized combat, the whole throwing this javelin or this big, ball. It's all really just simulation of fighting stances and styles. Whereas baseball, geez.
So I don't know. Yeah. Well, I was thinking it might have a spy sort of simulation to it, because
you are stealing bases.
There's guys trying to steal all the bases, and that's always fun to watch because they lead off a little bit.
There's your adrenaline thing, yeah.
And at the same time, the pitcher he's got 2 jobs going on, which is really fun because he's got that job of the one-on-one.
Pitching the ball that the guy can't hit,
the single combat, the knight versus the knight sort of combat.
The jousting sort of thing.
But he also has this guy over here that he's got to watch because he can't take his eye off.
And that's the thing, is some people will look, I'm going to try to steal it, but they don't actually want to steal it. They'll never even try it. They just want to lead off far enough to distract the pitcher's attention so that he won't throw the ball that nobody can hit. So he only throws a regular thing, crack, and then the guy's already 10 steps ahead, and then I got to the next base.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty standard for how the game is played. You're supposed to, if you're not leading off and if you're not bothering the pitcher that way, you're not doing it right.
It's some nice mental tactics. Maybe you can call it a bit of a dirty pool sort of thing, but honestly, it's pretty good stuff, and it's not really all that dirty. It's not like you're calling them names or anything. You were just being a present distraction.
So I was thinking it might have like almost a Cold War theme to it, where it's like spies like sneaking around the bases, and so it could be that kind of, instead of the open warfare of football, it's like the sneaky, gotta get around the bases, and you got to play your role, but then as soon as the ball is in play, then you can move as much as you can before the ball comes back to you. But so I don't know.
It would be very hard to imagine what equivalency it would have on the battlefield.
Yeah,
aside from the whole prospect of like the hitter being like the big guns and everyone in outfield being like people in the trenches, sort of thing.
Yeah, except they're running to the wall instead of away from it, sort of.
Yeah, well, it'd be like I suppose in this case it'd be like whipping a grenade out there. It's like, oh no, I've got to protect my friends. Go catch it,
Catch it. I don't know. So it's probably not really a thing, but I was just thinking, that was.
It's a sport that was just created as a sport, not as like, okay, we want to really sack the team in the neighboring town, but we don't want to get charges pressed against us, so let's make a game where we're allowed to tackle them and have like 3 or 4 of us jump on top of the guy and just flatten him out. Let's call it rugby.
And the other thing about baseball, it might be like a pass the message sort of game, like throw it, because you're throwing the ball between people. You have a very important, it could be some sort of message or
well, that's
orders.
The thing is between the pitcher and the catcher, they're sending the signals back. Shake the head, no.
Yeah.
3 lines down, no. 2. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Can the batter intercept
Meanwhile, the manager, is just looking at the stuff from the other team. They're going to do this, so he makes a signal to the batter. So the batter's getting ready to try and crack this one out of the park, no matter what it is. He has to also at the same time pay attention to his his manager there, who's saying, he makes a quick signal. They're going to throw this one, so he can really know where to swing and how to swing, or even okay, no, it's going to be a slow ball, or it's going to be a high pitch on purpose. Don't swing for it at all. It's going to be out of bounds, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of double thought going on there. So I definitely like the spy analogy of the whole thing. It's a very physical spy style going on.
Yeah, and I know that football, for example, is also a very cerebral game if you get into it. But I guess I never got into it deep enough to sort of see that cerebral level of football. To me, football just looks like guys crashing up against each other. Well, they do have
to plan as to, it's like, okay, we have to intercept them here, and that'll free up the stuff so you can go around, sort of thing, and then you get into the tactics. And I dig the tactics of it. I'll never deny that.
Yeah.
That said, you don't see about 4 or 5 people piling on top of the third base, like, tackle him, boom. Third base is open, run home, buddy.
Yeah.
No, it's...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. If you have more than one fielder in a location, you shouldn't do that. You should. Yeah. Your guys in baseball, you're supposed to be as spread out as possible.
So it's a very different style, and it's always something that I suppose I've delayed looking up and figuring out the history of, because it's clearly a sport that was designed to be just a sport, probably for gentlemen, because you're not allowed to keep the bat once you swing. You got to drop that thing down, and then you got to run.
Yeah, I think it was invented in the Victorian era. They had Victorian gentlemen and stuff. I don't know.
I like this cricket game, but what if we were to work it overhand instead of underhand? Just crack the mallet as you swing the ball on by. Yeah, let's do that.
Anyways, if people want to learn more about the history of baseball, we're not doing that this episode. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was interesting. You can find it on Wikipedia or wherever.
But it is definitely an interesting thing that, because a lot of the other sports do have good parallels as to what's going on here and there.
Yeah.
Get target to the end zone sort of thing. That works for pretty much any sport except baseball sort of thing. What differs is how you do it, because sometimes you got to dribble the basketball, other times you're only allowed to hit the volleyball, you're not allowed to catch it and run with it. Although maybe for a larger style, like a place, where you got like 6 people over like a basketball court on each side, and you grab the volleyball, you run down, bam! I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas here.
Yeah, okay. So, I think that's basically what I did. I did my normal Minecraft and watched my shows. Not too much to talk about there. So yeah.
Given this whole combining of our two things, as I've got the Victorian Frankenstein and you've got the Victorian baseball, how good do you think Frankenstein's monster would have been at something like baseball?
Not very good, I don't think.
He was very physically okay, but he had stiff joints.
He was strong,
yeah.
but not very coordinated.
He'd be more of a rugby type guy than you're saying.
I suppose, yeah.
God, Frankenstein on the other team for rugby, that'd have just been a fucking demolisher. Just absolutely lay waste to the other team. Probably most of his own team as well.
Well, I'm picturing him being the guy who just has the ball and just basically walks to the end zone and nobody can...
Well, that's the thing, though, is in the movies, you get enough people to pile on him and you can do it. I mean, in the movie I saw, they piled on him, they bound his legs, mounted his arms. They basically kind of like crucified him sort of thing, like not through with nails, but tied him up onto a log, and that's how they got him into town. Mm-hmm. So you can technically subdue him, but you're going to have a concentrated effort. He is the big, strong guy, definitely. And I like what they did on the Munsters with Herman for him.
Well, now, was Herman Munster, was he stronger than the monster in the Frankenstein movies?
He was stronger than that, because they had a thing wherever he would have a tantrum, he'd stomp his feet, and everything would start rumbling, and, they get the people upstairs, up top, dropping a little bit of gypsum dust down to make it like he's shaking the thing.
Yeah.
But he's actually supposed to be the Frankenstein monster. According to his history, shortly after the events of the dang movie, sort of thing that everyone knows and either loves or at least acknowledges, he doesn't die from the windmill fire. He just goes roaming and he winds up getting adopted by the Munsters of England.
Huh.
And during World War II, he actually fights on the Allies' side.
Oh yeah.
So say what you want about him as a monster, his army buddies loved him. They say he had the strength and he had the fight of 3 men in him.
Yeah.
Because he may as well be at least a 3 different men sort of thing. And when you're wounded on the battlefield, he'd pick up 3 or 4 of the guys, carry them back to safety. He saved lives. So I think that's where he got his morality from, and that's, how he's so much more of a person than what you saw in the movies.
So in the movies, he's made out of various criminals. He's probably an average age of 25 or something like that.
But here's the one wonderful thing is, in the movies, as they progress through, the spark that gave him his life, it's not just a regular spark like a spark of life you and I have. This is a spark that will not die. If you want to kill him, you're going to have to drain him out like a bad battery and then unsew him piece by piece.
Interesting.
And that's the only possible way anyone's kind of figured out how to stop him from coming back. He gets enough energy in his system, like enough shocks, he will be up, and the more shocks he gets, the stronger he gets. Although they never really did much with that in the Munsters. Herman was just Herman, and they never had to supercharge him to make him stronger. Maybe an idea if you want to do an anime style with Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, but by the time of the Munsters, he would be, I guess
60,
age-wise.
70 years old, sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah, he's eternally youthful, sort of thing. So long as he maintains a decent diet, he doesn't get shot a lot, and gets the proper amount of energy in his system. He stays eternally youthful.
Actually, yeah, I should ask about that. The way he gets energy, does he just eat food like anyone else, or does he have to get recharged?
They do show him eating food. I don't recall any scene, because honestly, it's been a while since I saw the TV series. I did get a chance to see their movie, not too far back. It was a made-for-TV movie they had.
Okay.
Munsters Go Home. But I don't recall him getting an electrical charge on purpose. It's oof, I'm feeling a little tired and, need, to shock myself up a bit. No, they never really did that in there.
I could see that
probably,
being interesting.
Yeah, probably because it might have inspired kids to, shock their own neck. And even back then, they were saying, no, this is going to wind up getting us into trouble. So let's not have a main guy, plug something into the wall socket and then shock his bolt, sort of thing.
I'm trying to think of another character that was charged by electricity. I guess the Borg in Star Trek. I don't know if that would be electricity. Maybe it's more like
now
plasma.
I'm picturing the Borg in a black and white sort of, Munsters comedy sort of thing. That's beautiful.
What if they had one Borg drone as a member of the Munster family?
Yeah, they've got 001, and, Munster sort of thing, and then they've got Q as the wacky grandpa figure. I could see this going. I could see this doing a fairly nice play, but it's too bad all the people from the next generation where all this would really develop from have basically gone on to other things, and it's been so many decades since they've been around that they're not going to do that just as a nice little kicker for fun. The only question is, who would you have for the normal person? The Marilyn character in the Munsters.
Well, it could be anyone, right? I mean, it's just...
Well, it would ostensibly have to be a female character.
One of the characters from the show, from the Next Generation?
Yeah, because her actual name wasn't Munster, it was Mundane. She was, let's see, I think it was the mom's niece, sort of thing, and there's family problems going on over there, so she's living with the Munsters. And they're all sad that she's so ugly and so plain. Because that was a nice little running joke. It's like, oh, do you think we'll find someone that's willing, to have a relationship with her? Maybe if we're lucky, but I don't know. I just don't know.
Oh, well.
It made for a funny running gag. Every couple episodes they'd mention it, and of course she's played by the beautiful lady and all that. But you can't have Troy doing that because she's like, a psychic, so she's not normal. And
oh, that's true. Yeah, I was going to say, but yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I guess you could kind of have Beverly Crusher there. I don't know. She's kind of got the single mom thing going, so I don't know if that's considered, what you consider like a mundane thing. Well, maybe Guinan. Get Whoopi Goldberg in there as the normal person. I think, the role she played there.
Except that she's like 900 years old or whatever.
So you're saying she might make for an interesting role for Grandpa, because Grandpa Munster there was, well, he wasn't actually Grandpa Munster, but the Grandpa there was actually supposed to be the Dracula.
Oh yeah.
It's just one of the many roles he'd had in the many centuries he'd been.
I think it makes sense because Guinan and Q do have sort of a connection in the Next Generation, because
she was also serious enough to kind of give him pause, sort of thing too. He's like, oh, okay, I can't be truly silly funny out here right now.
Yeah, and that's weird because she didn't have any, powers, I don't think.
But that look she gave you, that's a power there.
Although I think she was slightly psychic, though. I think she had premonitions and stuff. She did foresee events.
Nothing powerful,
Not like Deanna, no. But I think she had some sort of psychic power.
That was kind of a racial thing for her, I think. It wasn't even weird for her race.
Well, Laurens, I think, all had something like that.
But she strikes me out of everyone, though, as being the most even-tempered and possibly, normal mentally sort of thing. Everyone else was kind of doing their own stuff. Tasha Yar was a whole other case entirely.
Yeah, well, she's not, she doesn't have powers. She's just a security guard.
She was the bartender sort of thing. Really?
No, Tasha.
Oh, so Tasha, I'm going back to Wolfie there.
Yeah.
She's just basically the bartender, but Tasha Yar had things to prove, man. She was So she might work as in the Lily character, because Lily had to work very hard to keep Herman Munster in line.
Yeah.
'Cause when you got that sort of strength, you got to kind of play against, you can't just meet force with force. You got to use a little tact and guile.
I suppose if you want just the prettiest character in Star Trek, you might...
Whoa, that's a case for debate there. I mean, a lot of nerds have argued a lot of words over that one, but yeah.
I was thinking maybe Riker.
Here's the thing, is Riker, in my mind, because of the hairy thing, he would always work for the little wolf boy.
Guy.
But he's a little bit too big for that. They'd have to use Alexander.
Worf should be the wolf guy, the wolf
Well, you'd
boy.
have his kid, Alexander, there, because he was the actual kid, and so he works for size-wise there, but I don't know. That's an interesting off-topic, though. If you're big into the Star Trek thing, write a little skit scene of that, send it to us. We'd like to read that.
Star Trek meets the Munsters.
Yes, Munster Trek.
Wow. Yeah, I want to see something like that. I want to see more of that, more than what we've just explored.
We are in Victoria, and so is the Loading Ready Run crew. Maybe if we can see one of them, we'll just shout the idea at them and then run away, and hopefully they'll pick it up, and we'll see it on their website.
Well, yeah, they do make movies, so yeah.
That's the best we can hope for until we get big and famous and we're able to authorize this sort of stuff and put it into action. Just shout ideas at some people and run.
Anyways, that's enough for what we've been doing, I think.
Yes.
We did have a main topic to get to finally.
I think it kind of segs in from last week's podcast.
Yes, well, we were talking about... What were we talking about last week?
Last week we were talking about
versus technology. Yes.
And how one can replace the other just by the fact of there's a lot of unknowns. You don't understand, technology. It's basically magic then. But when Josh put up... the whole thing on Facebook last week, I made a little comment saying how we never got around to Jules Verne and his works, because when he first put them out, it was cutting edge, man. This stuff is science fiction, and in several, not all regards, the concept of actually riding a balloon to the moon, maybe not cutting edge there, but a lot of stuff he talked about was considered very cutting edge and very, very good thought-provoking stuff for its time. You read it now, and it's almost like farcical, in terms of how fantastic it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it definitely makes you laugh. Yeah, for sure.
So while he intended it to be this nice flight of fancy and help inspire people to actually get themselves to the moon, in this day and age, it's deep, deep fantasy. And he never intended for it to change genres at some point, but it did. And so I think that's what we're going to be talking about this week.
Yeah, because the world sort of moved around.
Technology marched on, but he wasn't able to update the books after he died because, he died. So you can't just update the technology of that stuff.
And there's like C.S. Lewis specifically did like interplanetary fantasy. He wrote some planetary novels like about Venus and Mars and stuff like.
And the concept of just being able to go and land on Venus now is considered laughable. The out of control greenhouse effect. Now, say what you want about whether or not the greenhouse effect and all that stuff is happening on Earth. It is happening on Venus. There's a reason why it's so freaking hot there.
Yeah, well, I don't know if is happening is the right way to put it, because it sort of always is going on.
Well, that's the thing, is there is some evidence that states it hasn't always been that way.
Maybe there was life on Venus one time?
There definitely ain't now. It's several thousand degrees. It's pretty much getting towards fraction of the temperature of the sun sort of heat going on. And it's causing it's causing the very land itself, at the ground, to just become so heated and near molten. It's basically repaving its surface every, 50 million years or so? Yeah, something like that. But all the land that was there when the dinosaurs were around is completely gone now. It's been,
There were dinosaurs on Venus? What?
No, well, when the dinosaurs were on Earth,
the
land that was on Venus since then has completely gone. It's not like you can go here and oh, hey, this is where a dinosaur was. The tectonic plates aren't moving that fast.
I see what you
on
mean.
Venus, the heat is such a great degree. It's really helping the rocks liquefy, so they're moving a lot faster there.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if that's atmosphere or just the fact that it has an active, active volcanic core.
When the temperatures are enough that what we consider basic rocks here are like silly putty sort of thing there. It makes it a lot easier for the tectonic plates to shift because there's not much to grab onto. I suppose you can look at it as like a taffy pulling machine. There's no chunks really to go on there to get anything stuck. It's very pliant.
Well, that's Venus for you. Yeah. Also, like Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote a whole series about Warlord on Mars. There was a recent Disney movie about that too. Mars.
How good you say it was or not was, I don't care. It at least highlights some fun things. And sometimes you don't have to care about what it's really like on Mars. This is fantasy and like just interplanetary fantasy. And that's all you really need. Everything else is just run with it. Don't haggle over the little bits. This is fantasy. Just relax and watch.
Okay. So that's the thing, though. It is considered like sort of at the. I don't know if at this. Well, this is the hard thing.
It was
about
taken more
fiction.
Seriously then, as opposed to just, reading it for fun and fantastic nature now.
I mean, basically, most of the science fiction that we read and love that's written sort of nowadays is also basically science fantasy. Really, like Star Trek is a good example of just science fantasy. Or even, I don't know if science fantasy is the right word because it is fantasy, but it has like a spaceship as an element in it. So
not that far off. I mean, honestly, if we could get over a few hurdles, we wouldn't be here on Earth. We'd probably be rocking around in space ourselves. Simply because space is kind of awesome, even if it's really big and really empty.
It would be. So the point is, though, there's other examples of genre switching or genre evolution from one genre to another, even within a work or from a work to its sequel. The sequel might be a completely other genre than the original, and is that like, I don't know, shouldn't you stick to if something works, shouldn't you stick to it? Well, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, if you stick to it, and people are going to say, you're just rehashing the same sort of thing as you did last time, where's the new stuff? Whereas if you put something new, they say, oh, you've changed it, now it sucks.
Yeah.
So technically, no matter which way you go, you're not going to please everyone, so you may as well go in a way that makes you happy. So if you want to take this one down a more serious road, if you want to take this tangent to go more light, have fun with it, man. Just roll.
Yeah. Well, I remember hearing somebody saying about The Hobbit was, they thought the first Hobbit movie was exactly the same as the first Fellowship of the Ring movie, or the first,
Whereas the books were very, very much different.
Yeah.
The Hobbit movie was very clearly a more fantastic story, like fairy tale sort of style. Whereas Lord of the Rings, that was bigger and deeper, and it had some serious things going on there, buddy. So, yeah.
Yeah, and when we get around to Peter Jackson making the movies, he basically, the tone of both trilogies is very much the same. Like, it's...
Well, that's what people are expecting, yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's just an artistic choice to make, okay, we're going to make the tone of The Hobbit more like The Lord of the Rings, just because we feel like doing that.
If there's something we learned from Ralph Bakshi's stuff, is playing the light-hearted way doesn't always work for the core audience. These people take their fantasy stuff very seriously. Like, I take the stuff very seriously. I'm very glad that Peter Jackson has taken it so seriously as to craft something as good as possible, and not just, oh yes, it's a story about a short little man going on a fun adventure. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, it's something bigger about that, and and I'm going to respect how much you guys like it, so I'm going to do my best.
Okay, so genre shifting.
But,
what else?
Well, I can come up with a very nice example here. It's one that's being used online. Cerebus started out as a 300-issue comic. And the guy purposely decided, he said years ago, like, I'm only doing 300 issues. That's
okay, I'm not familiar with Cerebus, so...
okay, well, it's one of those independent things that managed to get a nice cult following because he was able to reliably publish. And in the indie stuff, if you can publish reliably for a while, that's miraculous! That's amazing! But it started off, as an aardvark person, sort of thing, in a fantasy-style world, and things were kind of fun and kind of happy. Mm-hmm. The further in you get towards 300 on there, the darker, and more serious things got. And so, go over to TV tropes, and it's called Cerebus syndrome. Anything that starts off light and fantastic, but winds up getting grim and dark, well, that's kind of, how, we describe it now, Cerebus syndrome online. You can see that in a lot of works. The original Warhammer 40k stuff was a lot less serious. Orcs were funnier. They had their space dwarves in there. They called them, I don't know, like stunties or something. And then things got grim and dark, and so much that online you'll call it grim dark. And it's very serious now. There is no room for humor here, except with the occasional things that orcs do that really makes people's head hurt. Like, they go through the warp and wind up back in time. So the orc boss meets his previous self, and he shoots himself in the head and kills himself. Why did he kill his previous self? That way he gets another copy of his favorite gun. Now he's got two of them. And that's the sort of thing that winds up messing up with a lot of people's heads.
Yeah,
because
well, time travel.
Don't break time travel, please, but the orcs don't care, and there's no consequences for them. So that's where you find the humor there. But it's gotten very grim and dark. Harry Potter series, you can argue, happened that way too. The first one, I mean, watch the movie and tell me that's not almost escapist fantasy.
Okay, yeah. Boy
living a horrible life, technically, like being abused by his step parents or thing.
Okay, that's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark, but he winds up, all of a sudden he gets, magical things happening. He talks to a snake. Owls come delivering a message. You're a wizard, Harry. And then he goes off to magical school where everyone loves him because he's an amazing special person when, and the scar means something on his forehead. Uh-huh. And he's special and he truly means something. He's not just the unwanted child living in the room under the stairs.
Well, isn't there still a conflict? There's a stone missing. The Philosopher's Stone is missing, right?
But of course he can do it. It's not like everyone says, okay, you're a wizard, but you're still the wizard who lives in the room under the stairs. No, he gets a real room. People like him. He's got there's an endowment. He's got cash to spend now. He's got what he's always wanted and never had. And yeah, he's special, and he's got these things that make him truly a unique snowflake now. In the later movies, unique snowflake just kind of makes him a target for everything, it seems, and things get darker there. I won't spoil anything for anyone as to what happens in the end.
Don't spoil Harry Potter. Okay, so so Harry Potter sort of that seems to be a common thing, that
start light, work
start
deeper.
Light, go dark, and I guess in a way that's because once you establish certain facts about the world, you can't change them. So you just have to say, well, what's the consequence of that? And sort of in the real world, consequences of things tend to lead to sort of a more conflict and more problems and more...
just in the first book and movie, I'll use them both back and forth because they're doing really good at, one book, one movie then. Mm-hmm. They introduced Gringotts, and it's like, oh, what is that creature there? Oh, that's a goblin. And it's not until later on in the series that there's a whole thing about goblins being a second-class citizen, and being denied the chance to pursue their magical talents because the wizards won't teach them any of the wandcraft stuff, and they treat them as they are officially recognized, by the Wizard Society as a lesser being. They are not on par with humanity. And the wizards seem to think, oh, I guess that's okay, and they like it that way, I suppose. No, the goblins don't. There's some deep things in there that wind up mimicking some very bad parts of European history with various ethnic types.
Oh yeah, with like genocides and things, just sort of wherever they happen to be.
And who's allowed to do what, and what status you have as like you count as half a human being. And it's not just the goblins. There's some pretty nasty issues there that the wizards just are completely, head up sort of problems about that. But you don't see that in the first one. It's just Gringotts. Oh, he's a funny little, man. And what is he? Oh, he's a goblin.
That is interesting because in the heroic cycle, like the Joseph Campbell version of the hero's journey and whatever, mm-hmm. the hero travels from sort of innocence to experience and sort of grows up and
sees the problems that he never saw before.
Darkness in the world and stuff. So often you'll see that like within a single work. It's like, within the one novel, it's like here's the hero's journey from innocence to experience and overcoming what he encounters. But then with works that become multiple novels, like the Harry Potter becomes a series, you can see that same cycle sort of stretched out into getting more and more experience and darker, sort of with each next next episode or next novel. There's more descent into experience, and I suppose that makes the heights that Harry can soar to somehow higher.
It does make him seem a lot more mature in the later books.
Yeah.
Not a lot of time has actually passed, but how is he showing he's mature? He sees these things happening. He's being told about them. He's not being shielded because, he's just a young little one.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with art, is that it brings the viewer along that journey too. Like the journey is also growing alongside Harry.
I think, although it might also be that things go from light to dark more often than the reverse, is because one, it's kind of harder to write comedy than it is to write suspense and tragedy and on all those other darker things. A punchline is hard to come by, and you really got to work at it. Mm-hmm. But suffering is easy to do. I mean, just hurt a character. That's kind of, just like a quick, easy way of doing it. Making it comedy the entire time through, very difficult. Just ask Robert Asprin. The whole Myth series he did, is very difficult to work with. The other bit is perhaps because if it was always written fun and lighthearted, the author probably would get kind of sick and tired of it really quickly. If everything's, if it's Candyland all the time, then it gets really saccharine and it's like nothing really bites. There's no grip. So maybe it's a hard time for a lot of people to find that comfort zone right in between. Not too light, not too dark, just shadowy.
Well, I like too that we're not talking genre as much now, which I guess this is fine. This is a reasonable tangent. We're not really talking genre. We're talking tone at this point.
Well, that's the thing is you can make an argument that dark blank for a genre is a subgenre of its own.
Yeah, and, dark whatever. Yeah.
I know GURPS Fantasy has a section on like light fantasy versus dark fantasy, and how dark fantasy gets like kind of Lovecraftian at times. Why? Well, because it's dark. There is no good. The best you can hope for is non-hostile sometimes.
Now, I think one of the reasons why it's difficult to stay light with an extended series is that you need to always be introducing new features. Here's a new creature. This creature is fun and does this and that. Like, here's some puppies. But then, puppies get
the
older.
puppies eat one another as they get older until there can be only one.
And now they're dogs, and now you have to take care of them and stuff. So introduce new puppies and new monsters, new fun fairies or whatever. So that sort of helps to keep it light, is to always be introducing those new elements, and that's good discovery.
It worked for Lovecraft, because, I mean, his stuff started off pretty dark and pretty, a little prosaic, but pretty dark and weird, especially for its era. But then he came up with what they call the dream cycle, the guy who's dreaming and stuff, and that had a much lighter tone to it. I mean, Nyarlathotep was in there and all that, and the characters were still there, but it didn't have the same horrible dark tone. How did he defeat the Night Gaunts that carried him away? Well, he tickled them. That's not going to work when you encounter Yog-Sothoth. You can't tickle him and everything gets better. No, I'm sorry, it just didn't go that way. So, yeah, by him putting in this whole dream realm sort of thing, he was able to keep writing the dark stories, the weird, and stuff like, I opened the door and saw the things beyond that mankind must never see, and his near purple prosaic. Because I'll say this, I like Lovecraft's works. Sometimes he got a little overly prosaic. That was just his style, whatever.
Cool.
But yeah, he could write the dark stuff like that, and then he could also write the nice, lighter fantasy stuff where, you encounter zombies, but they're not really bad people. They just, need to eat flesh, and occasionally they turn into giant worms. Whatever. It's a thing. So yeah, by putting in that interesting tangent all the time, he could always go back and forth like, I don't feel like writing horrible works about things that doom all of mankind to insanity. I want to write about cats. Intelligent cats in a city. Yes, that's what I want to write about today. And he could do that.
Yeah, cool. So that's light and dark. So that's another thing. I want to bring up Doctor Who too, because Doctor Who does the whole time travel thing. And he sort of can transcend genres in that way, in that Well,
he permanently left his original genre in the first season.
Yeah,
sure. It was originally supposed to be historical, stuff. He goes back into Earth's history, and they see all the fun things, and they learn about Earth's history, and that got decent ratings. But then the one thing where he goes off into another world, and something happens, related to Time Lord stuff and all that, that got really good ratings. So that got a lot of people interested. We got a lot of positive feedback. Let's do a couple more.
Yeah, but so
and then bam,
history isn't a genre, because they're within history.
Historical fiction.
Well, you have we'll go to pirate times, we'll go to Viking, we'll go to ninja times.
It's a Peabody and Sherman type thing going on there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of a genre of the week almost kind of deal. And then yes, if you introduce sort of the alien landscapes, the sky is there's no limit. The sky
is not the limit. The sky is where you start.
It sounds like was that ever used in either
Probably,
some show,
yeah.
Doctor Who, or maybe Firefly or something like that?
Probably been used a couple times.
And I suppose, that's the intent of Star Trek, is it's supposed to mirror the Odyssey. It's like we go to a new planet every week, so something completely unexpected, we don't know what sort of genre.
Well, especially with the original one, the later series, not quite so much. Right. But it was always the Odyssey meets a morality tale. Because, face it, the guy, the black on one side, white on the other, versus white on one side, black on the other. Clearly a almost painfully blunt analogy of the racial conflicts of the 60s at the time, being played out in space.
Yeah.
And so you got to see the fantastic equivalencies thereof. Little weird, but you know what? They made a point. Even if it was a bit of a blunt point, maybe a bit of a straw man point. You can argue straw man point, but whatever. So in that case, it was clearly a morality play. In the later ones, it truly dives straight into the proper sci-fi, where it was and now we go do this, and so it's not a weird unexplored planet every time. Sometimes they're going to a planet they know of, we got to deliver medicine to the sick planet, or we got to, configure our beams so we can bombard the planet with the proper radiation to kill off this horrible plague that's eating all vegetable mass, and then something happens. That causes there's a conflict of we can't break the prime directive. So instead of it being a morality play, it plays out something more sometimes it's like a CSI. What happened here? We got to figure out this problem. Who done it? Other times it plays out more like a NCIS sort of thing, where they got to play the role of the police, and they got to okay, we got to do this, and they got to be the diplomats this week, and they got to do that the other week. And so it changed up. I think it was for the better that way, honestly. Some of the morality plays got a little weird in the original series, and I love the original series, but it did get a little weird. I won't lie.
Well, if Star Trek wasn't weird, I wouldn't like it.
Yeah, but there'd be times when you're watching, it's like, wow, this scene, I mean, just looking at it's kind of hurting my head seeing this. That's okay, because next week, apparently, they've got Nazis in space going on. So, I'll hold on, I'll watch it next week.
Did they ever do Nazis in space?
Yes, there was a world
like SS officers and all that?
Yeah, it was a guy, like a Federation scientist was going to a planet of, they weren't humans, but they were pretty much humans. There's no rubber weird forehead thing going on there.
Okay.
And there was a lot of problems going on, and he figured, you know what, we got to unify everybody under one whole thing. How can we do that? What was the best and quickest way to unify people? And apparently Nazis was his answer, because he's a bad person thinking that. And they wind up, they're getting ready to declare war on a neighboring planet by the time that, the whole crew gets there. Only to discover, spoiler alert, the scientist has basically been doped out of his gourd for years. It's his right-hand man that's been calling the shots for a while. The whole nature of the organization kind of funnels psychopathic people towards the top. And that's what the real point was. But yeah, Nazis in space.
Okay, cool.
They had it.
Yeah. So other examples of genre switching or genre bending, or even genre like transformation, evolution. And now, is an adaptation, that's a different thing, because you can have the same genre appear in multiple media.
Well, so that's what I was going to bring up, is I remember a Conan one where it's basically Conan in space. Arguably, I guess you make an argument that He-Man is kind of like that. I mean, they're all wearing loincloths and all that, and it's like pants were, forgotten technology, but they also got like a millennia-old robots, that can think for themselves. So it was a weird blend of sci-fi and fantasy there, and not always in ways that made sense. But yes, I do remember like a Space Conan series where he's a space barbarian.
Okay, Conan the Space Barbarian.
And, you can look, those of you who paid attention 20, 30 years ago to television, really early Saturday mornings, would probably remember Rocket Robin Hood, which took the concept of Robin Hood and put it all up in space. And so it wasn't Sherwood Forest, it was Sherwood Asteroid. It was a forested, asteroid, but they had rockets so they could move it around so that the evil, Prince of Naught would, never be able to properly find it. In this case, it wasn't Nottingham; it would be the national something like territories and all that. And it was basically, the first half of a solar system, sort of thing. And so they wound up doing. I don't really understand why they transferred it into a different setting though, and switched it from the I'll go with the fictional history then, because Robin Hood, flip a coin, may well have been an actual person, or maybe 2 or 3 people that they wind up cobbling together for the character that is Robin Hood as we know him now.
Okay.
But however you want to look at it, he either existed 3 times, or was at least some part true. And then they decided to take that, weird, fictional history sort of combo mashup, and then put it into space. It's not like they had to do it to, okay, we can't use Robin Hood normally because the copyright, infringement would get us. So we have to put them into space and kind of change the name. No, there's nothing preventing them from just telling the tales of Robin Hood.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's a good sort of core of an idea. I've seen the show, like 1 or 2 episodes of it. I didn't like the show at all. I thought it was mainly, cheaply animated.
Yeah, I can see now, looking back at it from the stuff I've seen recently, just how much they reused animation and how much they ate up time doing this and that to minimize the actual, we need to tell a story.
Yeah, but I think the core idea of that is really cool. That sounds awesome to me. Like
an asteroid you can navigate. That's pretty, that's awesome there, man. Evil space ruler, I don't know how much you could really patrol space. I see some real logistic problems there.
But that's okay, so that's that. So that's not really an example though of a work switching to a new genre, because it's a new work, basically. It's not a,
well, it's
not
a
like
derivative
a sequel.
sort of
Yeah,
design.
It's more like a derivative. So it's not exactly
one part
evolution.
Sequel, one part derivative. Man, the more I think about that series, the harder it is to pin down for anything. I always got weird series. But the Avatar series you can work with, not James Cameron, but the one Nickelodeon did. Yeah. It starts off as this standard kind of fantasy sort of thing, but then as time goes on and they go on to the core one, technology progresses, so it takes on more of an urban feel to it.
Okay.
I don't know if that should qualify. Would you say that one would? Because they're in an area that now has like cities that seem to mimic kind of the early 1900s for technology and ability and style.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say that's it. Didn't they also do, I'm not sure if it was Final Fantasy, but a similar thing where they have one era in an early version of the game, like it's a fantasy or medieval, and then in a later version it's like now they have trains and steampunk and everything like that.
That's basically just the progression they've always been going from like the first one was like pure fantasy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Although I will note there did involve aspects of technology in there, and we'll go back to that in a bit. I think it'd be nice to talk about. So it progresses on, and that way, and it seems the more they go, the more Magitech style they go on, which, in Final Fantasy VII, they at least coined the term for it and go there on out, where they actually do have trains. Although that one was weird because they did have a haunted ghost train you had to wind up fighting that you could suplex too. That was weird.
Here's an example. Kevin Smith's movie.
Okay.
He did Clerks,
yes.
Which was the genre
slice
of
of life. I think you qualified as a genre.
Yeah, slice of life, or just art school film or something, or whatever.
Well, I call it slice of life because I guess it was art school style and all that.
Any genre, really.
But it was about a guy who was his day on the job when he was covering from someone else. Like, well, whatever happened to the guy who was supposed to be there? Well, did he ever return? Because I think he's mentioned, but he is not in any of other Kevin Smith's, View Askew universe or thing.
Dante?
Not Dante, but the guy whose shift he was covering for.
Oh, it's. I bet because it's funny that world is very elaborate, so I bet that explains.
And they were especially like the first 3 or 4. It was very, very tight knit, back and forth in with everything there. And I would kind of like to see if he shows up, but for life of me, I can't even remember the guy whose shift he was covering's name.
So several of Kevin's movies are set in the same universe, and at the same time, each one is sort of a different genre, because Mallrats was a comedy, like a clearly, because Clerks wasn't really a comedy. It was funny, but it wasn't that. It wasn't supposed to be that.
That kind of funny that you perceive for your own life, like, I get that. That sort of things happen to me too.
Yeah. So there was that, and there was another one was a romantic comedy. Another one was
Chasing Amy.
Was it Chasing? Yeah, Chasing Amy. And then Clerks 2 is a musical, so that's yet another genre. It's also sort of slice of life because it's a day in the life of a different low-paying job.
A movie clerk sort of thing.
Working in the fast food industry, but a day in the life. But it's also a musical, so he did switch genres for almost every movie he did. I think each one is, and he also
Dogma's the action sci-fi
he
style.
did it. Yeah, he did Dogma. It's Dogma. Yeah, it has Jay and Silent Bob in it. Jay and Silent Bob is whatever it is.
Yeah. They're reoccurring. They're chronic characters. I think we can best term them.
Chronic characters. I like that. Yeah. And he did a horror movie too, or a couple. Well, he did. Whatever.
Depending on your view of comedy and how much you like or dislike Kevin Smith, all of them could be seen as horror movies.
Yeah, he did a monster movie too, and so there's somebody who's truly I think that's sort of the genre switch is sort of done, and I guess you can argue whether or not his. I
think Vulgar the Clown that he did with some of the money he made from the movies wound up being technically part of the same sort of universe.
Okay.
And that's pretty much as close to a horror as I want to see in that universe. But it does allow for the way to tell the different style. It's the same part of a larger story, but in a different style, and it works at a different pace. Would Dogma have worked as a slice of life comedy?
Set in heaven? Oh, I would watch that. It's just Matt Damon and Ben Affleck just dressed in angel wings, just sitting there and talking the whole movie.
Just spending the entire time, at the airport sort of thing, doing nothing.
Actually, like, a lot of that movie is basically that. If you watch it, a lot of it is just, they sit on the bus and they have a conversation, and then something funny happens.
And then it turns out, oh my god, the people they're having a fun time with are the people trying to come and kill them. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
There was an angel out of the side of the train. No ticket. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. There was a lot more action scenes there than you would find in, the original Clerks, though.
Yeah.
Which is not to say it didn't have any action scene. I mean, that fight near the end was pretty awesome. For, like a mundane, slice of life fight.
Yeah. And then, so that was another genre. It's the end of the world genre, I guess.
Near apocalyptic sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, they didn't blow up the White House or anything, or did they, in that movie?
No. It was all about New Jersey with the Fuse Universe stuff.
Yeah, because usually in those big epic end of the world sagas, they have to blow up some, the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, it's got to be something big. So if it's not the White House, it's got to be like Big Ben, or I don't know. I suppose you could do something over now. No, that Dubai's got all those wonderful things. Expect to see some of that stuff get blown up in a few movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Burj Dubai will collapse inwards on itself. From the bottom up, it'll be kind of awesome. I don't know what's going on with the alien technology, but
like a giant mole alien, like 1,000 feet tall giant mole, the 1,000-foot mole.
Okay, I can dig that. Yeah, it'll be like a Godzilla film.
Yeah, exactly.
I can dig it.
That might already exist, something like a giant mole. But anyways,
it hasn't been done to such a point that it's part of our core, collective acknowledgement.
Well, yeah, it's not in my brain, so I guess.
There you go. You need to work on it more. More sequels, mole people.
Yeah, and they burrow up underneath all the major monuments of the world. So.
I don't know. You could make it like a pseudo-biblical thing where the Burj Dubai winds up being the reincarnation of the Tower of Babel. And it turns out buildings can reincarnate. Oh, there's an interesting premise for you. I'd go with that. And actually you could have a lot of fun with that, where everyone's speaking in a different style, and that way you could have what's effectively a movie without any real words, and then just everyone's just doing weird different styles of non-languages.
If I wanted to see a Tower of Babel movie like this, I want to see the space elevator, because I think that will be the first truly, building that goes to heaven, sort of. We have tall buildings, but they
can scrape the sky, but it doesn't really pierce the heavens.
But if you have a space elevator, basically you can take a trip up there and leave the planet. You can go anywhere in the solar system from there.
Well, heck, if you got the time, and the momentum, you can go anywhere in the universe.
So, yeah,
at least your remains can.
I want to see a Tower of Babel movie in which, they finally complete the space elevator, and, God comes in and he's like, what is this? What did you just build? Did you just build a tower that goes all the way to heaven? I think I remember destroying this the last time you did that, so...
Yeah, but this one looks so much more awesome. Come on, the other one was just horrible. Look at this.
And then God, they have to,
the cables are as thick as our thumb, and we made it go up so high. Come on, God, you can't do that. Look at this, my thumb.
And God has just a little pair of scissors. I'm gonna cut it. I told you, no buildings that reach to heaven. That's what I said in the Bible. Or I guess I can confound your tongues also.
I'll do both at once. I'm God. You can tell me not to.
Snip. I guess.
Oh, but then it winds up being like a Wile E. Coyote comedy, because he snips it and he's on the top of the space elevator. When he snips it, only to realize he falls too.
He falls.
But he's God, so it's not like it'll kill him. It'll just be like Wile E. Coyote.
Just splat in the ocean, splash in the ocean,
or wherever the heck he winds up landing. I mean, you can fall a pretty good distance when you're at near orbit heights.
Actually, does Wile E. Coyote ever fall? I think I've seen this in a cartoon where a cartoon character falls from very high onto water, and it's like cement, so that's the character flattens.
Boom, and then it's just kind of him on the water for a second before he sinks.
I think that did happen to Wile E. Coyote. I think.
It's happened to a couple people over the years, but Wile E. Coyote does it best because he's got the practice.
Yeah, and he leaves an indent in the water or something like that too. It's like the Wile E. Coyote shape in the water.
Well, now there's an interesting way for us to perceive things. For a change of genre, sometimes it might only be a change of your mind. Because Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner, you could see that as just a basic cartoon. personified, coyote chasing a semi-personified roadrunner. Roadrunners don't actually look like that, so I'm going to say at least semi-personified. It's half, three-quarters, close enough.
Okay.
And so you can see it as just, a comedy that way, comedy cartoon.
Yeah,
or
funny cartoon.
You could see it as really depressing. It's man's search for, something and his constant failures at that.
Okay, yeah.
Or you could see it as hell itself. Why does Wile E. Coyote never die despite the huge amount of damage he's suffering? He's in hell.
Oh.
This is the boulder he is always going to try and push up the hill. Like, you could even connect it with, like, the Sam and Ralph cartoons, where, you've got Sam the sheepdog and Ralph the wolf, and they clock in, with the actual punch cards. For the younger ones out there, the punch card is a thing where you clock in for your time, and that's how they'd monitor whether or not you were coming to work on time, because they wouldn't trust you just saying, I got in at 9. You'd actually have to punch your card in for when you were going in.
I never had a punch a card, although I never had a real job, so...
Well, no, punch cards aren't a thing that really happens. Sometimes you got to clock into works or things so you can sign into, like, the computer database and all that.
Oh,
but
so punch cards were fictional, made up? Someone made them?
No, they actually existed, but that's, like, so far back for antiquated technology, you kind of have to explain it to the new people today. The young people, this is completely alien. It's like some of those weird old phones where they pick it up, the receiver, and that goes to their ear, and they have to speak into the phone, and it doesn't move.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like, how you remember all this stuff. This is before your time.
No comment. I'm a guy that watches a lot of 1930s movies.
So
I'm not old, but by virtue of what I have seen, I am effectively a lot older mentally with regards to technology than a person
all
would
the
be.
TV you've watched. I got it.
Or at least studied. I've paid attention to stuff and looked at it and actually had to look up, like, what the heck were they doing with that? But yes, you could see the Sam Sheepdog and all that. It's like one of these days, the Ralph tried something, he winds up blowing himself up and he dies. He's been a bad wolf, so he goes to hell. He becomes Wile E. Coyote throughout the burning hellscape that is whatever, like, false Arizona landscape they're in. New Mexico, as he's always trying to get something to eat, but he never gets any food, and he always gets a lot of torture, and that's, like, combining two of the main things that Dante talked about for his Inferno. The man paralyzed, he's eternally hungry and thirsty, and he's paralyzed, and the water is coming up just to his chin, and there's food, like grapes hanging just above his nose, but he's paralyzed, and so he can never get to either of them, despite being
like
so close.
Tantalus from Greek mythology, or is that something?
I think there's a couple people in there that was going on. One of them was highlighted, definitely.
Yeah.
And then you've got, Sisyphus with his boulder sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So does that make, what is Roadrunner? Is he the devil or just a devil?
Roadrunner symbolizes the temptation that had caused the wolf to sin in the first place. He is the wine that was overdrunk. He was the food that was taken to excess. Maybe you could see it, in a somewhat sexualized thing. He was, she? I don't know. The Roadrunner is kind of genderless. The Roadrunner represents the lady that Wile E. Coyote was chasing in life. And though he's always chasing after it, in some sort of weird amalgamated single form. All the excess that was done in life is represented now as a single Roadrunner.
If only Wiley could figure out that, because if I found out that sort of I was, like, apparently I'm dead and I'm in hell, but hell is a cartoon, I'd be like, okay, I can live with that.
Okay, now, here's a quick aside for you. What if, in like Dante's Inferno, the sign on the top of the gates to hell was your secret key, your secret ticket out? Abandon all hope. So, hell can only have power over you if you keep holding out hope. Like, eventually, I'm going to push that boulder up to the top of the hill, or eventually, I'm going to get that grape, or I'm going to drink some of that water, I'm going to get this, I'm going to connect to my long-lost lover and the tempestuous winds that are always blowing us around. They're always hoping, they're always trying to get there. But if you abandon hope and just accept your fate, hell has no power over you. You can just walk out the front gates.
Well, I like that, because it's almost a Buddhist message. It's like that, the whole Buddhist, like, if you let go of your earthly desires, then you won't suffer anymore, because you don't need anything. So, yeah.
That's an interesting way to work up hell, I must say. All of a sudden, all you have to do is just learn to just accept it. You can't get what you want. And so there's this childish desire to always want, always go. And the stuff that drove you in life to such horrible ends, You know, you let it go. You grow up as a person, and all of a sudden you just walk out of hell, right out the front door. No one stops you.
Yeah.
They can't touch you.
Well, it's funny because, like, sometimes I'll be writing a story. I'll be like, okay, I know the rules of writing stories. I know the rule is you have a character who needs a thing and wants it, and there's a conflict preventing them from getting it. And sort of, I always sort of, in the back of my mind, it's like, well, maybe they could just be Zen Buddhist about it and just, I don't need that. Sort of.
That would be an interesting. Well, there's a fun story for you or anyone else listening out there to write for maybe a short story, maybe a full-length novel, however you want to do it. A person is leading a horrible life. Everything's going wrong. It seems like they're always stacked against them, and eventually, midway through the story, they realize they're dead. They're in hell. This is hell. It's not the fire and the guy in red poking you with a pitchfork. It's about the dreary monotony that slowly crushes you, and you keep wanting to go again. And the rest of the book is about them learning to just let it go and quit giving a damn about it. And if you can't give a damn, you can't be damned. And in the end, they just walk out of hell. And I suppose they got to wind up going through purgatory, but they got to learn to not give a purg. And so
I like that. It sounds like almost something from it sounds like Fight Club in some ways, like that kind of twist.
It's just the sort of thing I think that could wind up being a decent story. So if you're good enough, because I could try it, but I don't think I'm a good enough writer. I've got a lot of bad story I still have to write out and just burn when I'm done. It's like lancing a boil. Let's admit it. You got a lot of bad writing, and you just got to write it all out, and then you progress and you learn to go on to the better stuff.
Yeah, sounds good.
So yeah, I'm not at the stage where I can properly vent all my bad writing out right away, but I can come up with a good idea. So there's your good idea for the writing this week. Write about a person who winds up being in hell. Take all those little frustrations in your life and cobble them together into one sad sack of a character who's suffering from that every dang day. And then, they realize they're in hell, and just have them learn to just let it go. Just relax.
And now I know it sounds depressing on some levels, but also just laugh at it, just because it is funny in a lot of ways. That would be a good comedy. Imagine The Office, not The Office, Office Space set in hell.
Depending on who you talk to, some of the people really were there.
Yeah.
But I think it could be I think it could be very cathartic. I think even writing the concept of such a story, even if it doesn't wind up being a good one, even if it doesn't wind up ever getting published, is the sort of thing that makes you grow as a person. Is you okay, how is the character going to just overcome this? How are they not going to get all frustrated about that? And then they learn to their own techniques in real life.
Yeah.
And then it just doesn't bother them anymore.
Yeah, and that's sort of following that same arc that we're talking about. The character encounters sort of a dark reality and learns something about it, and then overcomes it.
And that winds up going out to a nice lighter ending, and there's a nice example of going from dark to light.
Yeah.
But okay, so I'm going to go back to, I think I put a pin in just earlier on, because we still got a couple minutes left, not many.
Right.
But in some of the early Might and Magic sort of thing, it starts off as your standard fantasy sort of thing, goblins, wizards, demons sort of thing, all the whole thing, all thrown in together at once. But it's not towards the end of them that you realize, the world you're on isn't actually, like a flat world. It's on a two-dimensional, observatory. And it's just, gone to pot. The technology isn't being upkept, and, this isn't being continued, that isn't going on. In Final Fantasy, the original one, they did it. It was very much a standard, fantasy, and then you got to go to the Air Temple, which is like a space station, and you're fighting robots, horrible things that have lasers and like missiles shooting at you, and you're just a guy with a sword and a guy with a dagger and two guys with spells, and you got to fight against that ED-209 from the Terminator movies. You got to fight that. It's like, oh man. So that brings in, it turns it from a standard fantasy into a sci-fi on a more grand scale. What do you think about that? Is that just a dabbling, adding a splash of genre, or could it be seen as suddenly shifting it from one genre to the other by suddenly saying, oh no, they're not magical spells. They're just, how you activate the machinery that causes, the reality perception, device to change, and all of a sudden, that's how you've conjured a pie.
I can see that being annoying in some cases, but I can if you do it right, I think I could go along with it. I like to see in my video games especially, I like to see that progression sort of work logically, like you know how you have
small hints here and there sort of thing, so you can piece together as a theory, and then later on when it's revealed, it's like, I thought that's what you might have been going for. I wasn't certain. Well, didn't put all my chips on that, but that's how it went.
Well, you know how in Civilization you go from being, the club wielding
guys with
barbarians,
sticks,
guys with sticks, to a full like tanks and fighter jets and aircraft carriers. So there's that. I like that sort of progression in video games. I guess magic would be an interesting. Age of Empires has a bit of magic in it, like.
Not too much, though.
Yeah.
It seems like almost like they had to add it for some reason. They could have probably done without.
I guess it's mostly it's healing and stuff, and sort of not. It's just management.
Yeah. How are we going to get the units to heal up quicker? It would normally take several years to heal what would be considered near life-threatening injuries. We've got to come up with a way to make them heal faster for the purposes of the gameplay. Magic.
Yeah, and then you can have medics in modern versions, but yeah.
Which is interesting, because then you go like very far ahead in like the technology progress levels to the fantasy sort of like sci-fi and in the far future, and oh yes, that was a pretty nasty wound on there. Don't worry, Beverly Crusher comes on by, and she does a little and oh hey, your skin's back. No more third degree burns for you. That kind of sucked while you had them, didn't it? Don't worry. We got another little beetle thing here that'll get your hair to grow out, and so you'll get your arm hair back. 10 minutes later, you're back on shift.
But complete with arm hair. I like it.
It seems like a thing they do.
Yeah. Well, do you remember in one of the shows where Data got skinned, and they put hairs on it, and the Borg lady...
Oh, yeah, the movie with the first contact, and she was
blowing on his skin.
Like, and the nerve sensors, yeah.
Making the hairs flop around, or... What do you call that? Anyways.
just react to the breeze sort of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of like that scene. Okay, some people saw it as being like a metaphorical, for like sex. Because, it's like, oh, she gave him sensations he's never known before. Yeah. Wink, wink, wink. But I liked it. I think it was a very well done scene. So, yeah. Maybe it was, symbolic of some other things. But... it was a very well done scene, so I'm not going to fault it on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Weird a little bit, I won't deny that either, but yeah.
So yeah, we've been all over the place. Do you have more to add about the...
Not quite certain. I would like to see a series of short stories, though, with a person who's got kind of like not Ponce de Leon. Who's the guy who fought the windmills again?
Don Quixote.
Don Quixote, that's the guy, yes. I would like to see something where the character is kind of insane, and so instead of being like a historical piece where it's a knight in his page sort of thing traveling about, it's a crazy man attacking windmills sort of thing. And that's what's really happening, but in his mind it's something else. But just have that shift for every short story from a different genre, where the characters stay the same, but the it's all told from the same perspective of this one unstable person.
So he thinks he's in a different universe.
Each of the short stories, as the whole, there'd be a larger storyline that goes between all of the short stories. But it's like, okay, now it's played out as a Wild West sort of thing. And then now it's done as a sci-fi. Now it's done as pseudo-medieval. Now we're going to go with a little ninjas versus samurai here, and we're going to keep on going on that way. Horror in the end, as he realizes, oh God, I'm insane.
Where I sort of thought you might have been going, but was Don Quixote in space? And instead of attacking windmills, he's attacking solar panels. And like he thinks he's under attack by aliens, but it's just it's the point in the future where
it's the repair drones coming after him, trying to get him to get out of here, you crazy space hobo.
Yeah, it's the point in space where it's become mundane. It's like you drive around like your spaceship repairman or whatever. You drive around your little spaceship, and then he turns that into his mighty steed, and he attacks the solar panels.
I won't lie, though. I have had dreams where my previous car was also a space car, and I could drive through space in that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I've had that sort of genre shift from a slice of life to at least a slice of life in space. So.
I don't know. Do you think anybody's tried that, doing Don Quixote in space?
If not, I think we definitely have a very good opening. I mean, Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters worked well, as well as Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. So, Don Quixote in space could work out. I think it's all public domain for this story, so you probably get away with it. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. Don Quixote is definitely available. It's same as Shakespeare that era. So. And
there's something else. Take Shakespeare stuff and put it into other genres too.
Yeah.
I mean, Lord knows a lot of his stuff has been adapted to a lot of other stuff, particularly Romeo and Juliet, which I still contend was never truly a romance story. It was a 3-day love affair that killed 6 people. Not very romantic. And dude, I don't think either of them were older than 15. I think she was 9 and he was 13. It's pretty messed up.
I remember hearing that they were both 14 or so.
She's supposed to be a couple of years younger than him, though. But they were both very young. It's not like, what you see portrayed in the movies now where they're like 17, 18. They're almost adults. No. Shift it back to a creepy age category and then play.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So
in that case, I suppose you could see that the most interpretations now are a bit of a genre shift, because it's no longer like, oh wow, they're so really young, it's creepy to read the story.
Well, my thinking is that there were no women actors in Shakespeare's day, so it would have been a young man or a boy playing Juliet and another man playing Romeo, and I don't know if they would have been 14, but they're the leads, right? So they're probably not the youngest members of the cast. So it probably never was actually played with that as young of characters as were written.
No, it's really hard to teach a 9-year-old like Shakespearean lines. I mean, if you think you're good enough to try it, give it a try, film it, and let's see how good you are. Put it up on the internet. Prove us wrong.
I think 9 is too young, because
you can do it, definitely. I mean, the
I'm saying I think the actual age in the play is 14.
That is one of the ages though that people have been able to make a decent argument for.
Okay.
14,
right.
9, and some other. So one person made not a bad argument, I remember, for 17, but it wasn't as good as the other arguments. It kind of fell apart. But I suppose you could use like Romeo and Juliet in almost any modern telling as a variation in a genre shift. Take it all the way to the other end. Make it like an old group of people. Like Romeo's 80 and Juliet's 75.
Yeah.
They're the head of corporations.
And I suppose if they're kids, then like the younger they get, the less blame you can lay on them, and the more it's like, oh well, it was this priest who did this, or what is he, a friar, or the guy who does send
who gives the marriage sort of thing and all that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's his plot. I mean, he's trying to do a good thing, trying to make the family
unite the two warring houses.
Yeah, but he sort of fails at his intention.
Actually, now that I think about it, I think I do recall seeing a cartoon where they were both robots.
Yeah.
The Romeo and Juliet.
I'm not surprised.
Although I don't believe it was very good, because if I have such a hard time remembering anything about it, it must have been pretty darn forgettable. So, But yes, that was a genre shift, instead they're robots, and no one believes them to be truly robots capable of love, because they're just robots. And so that winds up taking on an interesting dimension, because it's like the kids being too young to know what true love is. In which case, it's possibly that movie had a better interpretation of the two characters, and why the family said they couldn't be in love, than a lot of the other versions out there. So it's interesting for me to think about now.
Okay, well, and we've also hopefully left our listeners with plenty of things to think about. Or you can, if you're listening to this in the future, you can go ahead and skip over to the next episode, next iteration.
I'm going to take the long route. I'm going to spend a weekend, thinking about this sort of thing, and thinking about what it means to have people say, well, you can't do that. And it's like, well, why not? Because A, you're too young, B, you're a robot, C, this, and come up with the reasons, see how different that really is. Because it does change, you could use that to change the genre pretty quickly, just for the reasoning, and yet it's still the same very basic story. Although if you want to argue, Shakespeare managed to write the most essential plays because he was able to write the basic framework for all the big stories that wind up happening to so many people's lives.
Yeah, and his stories were sort of adapted from similar works,
Yeah, but he's the one who really refined it. He took like the coarse sugar that other people were writing. He managed to make it the refined stuff that everyone keeps coming back to.
Yeah, and maybe that's the secret to great art, is sort of like take existing stories and find what's good about them, and then take it and make it your own.
That's what Blizzard did for years. StarCraft, they did not come up with that idea themselves. That's basically the Warhammer universe, but less dark, less gritty, and very much more polished.
Okay. Yeah.
They took some stuff that other people were doing, and they really say what you want about them right now, but back then they polished it. They polished their stuff to the genre. It was a shining example of the genre, and that's why everyone went to all their stuff so big and so readily.
I see.
So yeah, just find a way to perfect the thing, and then that's your inroad to success.
Cool.
It's not the easy way, but it's your inroad.
I want to mention that we do have an email address for the people who have insights to share with us if we missed something, or if you came up with your own great idea.
If you did write Don Quixote in space, send us that link, man.
Yes, if you're inspired at all by this show, or if you just want to drop us a line, thesimulationist@gmail.com is where you can send emails. You can also leave comments wherever you find this podcast distributed. Most sites will have a little box. We have a little comment box on the blog page that you can comment in. And
if you have evidence that Wile E. Coyote actually was supposed to be in hell, I would really love to see that. That would blow my mind and tickle my fancy at the same dang time.
Evidence, eh? Well,
sure. Someone actually mentions, in this thing when they were designing the character, it was supposed to be an allegory for hell. Tell me what book that is in. I want to read that. Let me know.
Okay. And if you have anything else, feedback, you can leave us reviews on iTunes, as many stars as you feel you deserve. Also check out some other podcasts on rpgpodcast.com. There are lots of other cool podcasts going on, and
not as cool as us, but they try. They try, and that's something.
I think I've mentioned everything that I wanted to mention. I am SpaceBoot1 on Twitter, so you can follow me.
I'm nobody on Twitter. That's not actually nobody, but I'm just not there yet.
Not there yet. Well, we'll have to set you up with an account.
I'm still thinking about it. There's a lot of good people up there.
You can look me up on MySpace, although there's nothing there. It's just my name, so yeah.
It's something. It's more than nothing.
And we have a YouTube page that has this same show on it. So
listen to us again. Study us. Find out what makes us so great. Send us a message as to why.
Okay, so I've been Josh Trelevin.
I'm still Ryan Kirkby.
And that's all for this week. Send money.